Well, hello, guys. How's everybody doing?
Doing good, Tony. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you too. I had a situation come up with my mother last week. Couldn't be on the show. So
Well, and we have Nico back too. We haven't got to see
Yeah.
him in a while.
we have Nico. Yes, and you have some exciting news that you want to share with
Yeah,
people.
this is some great big news. Javier Palomo, who is a longtime friend of ours and obviously a student of yours, actually won the World No-Gi IBJJF Championship. So that's just gigantic. I think that's maybe the biggest championship he's ever won. I mean, I think that's the biggest tournament that I think that he's competed in. And not that he's won world championships before, but the IBJJF is just huge. So, I mean, just a huge congratulations to him. That's an amazing accomplishment. And I also want to plug, we did have a long conversation with him. So, if you're out there listening and you missed a previous episode, I believe like on iTunes or whatever, it lists as episode 27. Actually, it's two parts. We talked so long for him because he basically went over his life story and all the different people he's trained with and his long journey. And I think it's the 29th YouTube video. If you look at our podcast playlist, just because we've added some other shorter videos in there, so the numbering doesn't exactly line up there. But I highly recommend you check that out. I mean, it's a great show either way, but again, just it's a momentous occasion for him and for all of us. Honestly, we just it's a great moment.
Well, maybe you can put a link to it on the YouTube description here, if you can find it.
For sure, and like I said, it's just on our playlist, and it's like video 29, and again, you can find it on various streaming services for pure podcasts.
And the beautiful thing about Javier is when he does the stuff that that I showed him and taught him in these tournaments, he's not a big guy like me. He's not my size, right? He's a smaller guy. He's like 5'1" or 5'2", $140. So it goes to show you that you don't have to be a large person, a heavyweight or a super heavyweight, to excel. He's very good. He's a very good student of the game. He's like a scientist to it. He takes the whole thing seriously, and he's an older guy. He's not 21 years old anymore. And, so he's another shining example of don't let any preconceived ideas or preconceived notions stand in your way. And I remember we talked about this on the podcast that he used to hate when UFC came out and they kept calling Royce Gracie a little guy. And Javier used to get so mad. He's like, Royce is not a little guy. Royce is actually larger than average. He's taller than the average guy. He was weighing around 175, 180. Javier is a little guy, right? So I remember that all the time. It's like, he's not a little guy. I'm a little guy. But yeah, it's great that he's doing it, and I wish him a lifetime of success, man. He's great. He's just a great human being.
Yeah, and it's really kind of a really excellent example of how, I mean, because he's been training for decades, that years and years, and he's just a lifetime of learning and, kind of from humble beginnings. And now he's, competing at the world stage successfully. So it's just a huge tribute. And I think a great example to everybody to keep training, keep learning. And yeah, I mean, clearly it's something he loves, he's always in the gym and yeah, just can't be happy enough for him. He's a great guy. I mean, he's been a big help and supporter to us. He's never forgotten his roots and where he came from. So yeah, just hats off to him. That's awesome. Yeah, that's the best news. I know, Tony, you wanted to have kind of a serious discussion today, kind of a change of pace, about, kind of something you want to get the word out on. Before we do that, though, I also do want to do kind of the official plug before we get going that if you're looking for training, the Tri-C program is the gold standard here. It's the best way for you as a student to get access to Tony, to get all his information, the best bang for your buck, honestly, for you get all his videos, immediate access to that, but even more than that, you get kind of a customized lifetime training program, where you can communicate. You can either come out and train with Tony at his place, and then also get remote learning. So it's the best of all worlds. It's really a generous program. And then, of course, we recognize that not everybody is in a position where they can do that right away, but at a minimum, everybody listening, everybody who's a supporter, a fan, or a student could join the membership program, which we have two levels. One is, the base level is just, hey, I'm throwing my support your way. I appreciate your podcast. I appreciate your free videos on YouTube, and I want to see them continue. So that's what you're pitching in your $5 a month. And the level 2 is $10 a month, where we produce additional content videos that only you have access to, or I should say only members have access to. So that's like a 2-tier system. Both are very affordable. We appreciate anybody and everybody who signed up for all of these things or buys videos. It all goes to help out and, support Tony in the gym and kind of keep this lineage of catch wrestling growing and for the future generation. So anyways, enough sales pitch. Tony, I know, like I said, you had some personal things that you kind of wanted to make sure that people listening out there heard about and kind of your perspectives on things that's been going on with your family and your mom.
Yeah, well, my family is my mom. It's Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's, I believe, is probably a very misunderstood disease. It's actually named after a German doctor, Dr. Alois Alzheimer, who first noted this about, well, over 100 years ago, I think in the early 1900s, like maybe 1903, 1906. I don't want to go into the whole medical details of it because I'm not a neurologist. I'm, just a caregiver that suffers and from it. And I kind of want to use that focus. If people really want to get some information on Alzheimer's and the disease of that and other dementias, go to alz.org. They're the probably the pinnacle of information, but it's a very difficult disease to even diagnose because all of us will say, we all forget. Everybody forgets things, right? And we kind of laugh it off like, oh, I'm just getting old, Alzheimer's is not a part of aging. That's not like a destiny, right? Alzheimer's is a problem. It's an issue. And, earlier diagnosis is probably a good thing, of course. My mom got diagnosed roughly 10 years ago, but doing reflection, doing previous history of her behaviors, she's probably been suffering with it for maybe since the year 2000. So probably a good 20 years she's had it, and you don't know, right? Again, you think, okay, it's a part of aging. But the big thing is when this all started with her, before I moved out here to McHenry County, I just thought Alzheimer's was, you just forget, you might not remember things. And while that's a part of it, there's so much more. The alternate realities, the delusions, the paranoia, the mood changes, the violence, the anger, the sadness, all of this plays into it. And I know I certainly wasn't prepared for it. Nobody ever took me in and sat me down and said, hey man, this is what to look for. This is what's going to happen. If I would have known all that, I never, ever, ever would have thought about moving way out here in the middle of nowhere, because this community just really isn't prepared for anything like this. Part of the problem in rural America, which is where I'm living now, is, their medical infrastructure has pretty much imploded over the years, right? So you don't get that great care. Now you factor in insurances or, whatever. She has Medicare and Humana, and there's networks of doctors that she can see. So it's not like I can take her to, Chicago even for any kind of treatment. So for those people, Alzheimer's is relatively known as the disease that attacks the caregivers, because they're the ones who have to put up with all the behavior, all the trauma and the stress of it. And thankfully for most people, many people have an extended family where they can get help. They let's say a husband and wife, or the brothers and sisters, or children and grandchildren, and all of that. Well, in my case, there's none of that. It's just me and her. So all the focus is on me. And I think that there has to be a focus on the caregivers, because if they collapse, and it happens, or caregivers snap, even professionals that are not family members that are paid, sometimes just can't take it. The behavior that you encounter is unbelievable. You couldn't believe it. So I think that there has to really be an effort to expose and really get help for the caregivers so that they can stay strong. Because if they collapse, then the Alzheimer's patient collapses. And sadly, in my mom's case, Medicare and Humana do not cover caretakers like professionals. I was relying on the county's help, and their organization has dropped my mom. She's slipped further. I'm going to have a meeting on the 21st of this month. Supposedly, they're supposed to come to the house. We'll see what happens with that, but it's a bad situation. So the reason I'm bringing this up is for anybody out there, any person that may have a family member that you think may have memory issues, please get it looked at immediately, and please put yourself in a position where you not only have a quote unquote support group, but you actually have help. You have to, because for me, my personality, not that there's any groups per se that like I could go talk to. I don't want that anyway, especially what I'm dealing with it 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The last thing I need to do is abandon her to go to some group meeting and listen to everybody else's problems about it. I need to escape it. I need to get away from the Alzheimer world for a while. So yeah, it's really difficult, and you have to be strong. If you're a caregiver, you have to try to learn how to micromanage your own life. And somehow you have to find a way to break away for a while, to rejuvenate your batteries, and you have to do it quite often. This is not something you can do once a year, because it'll just, man, the attacks just keep coming. And caregivers have to watch out for becoming PTSD, that you will suffer from that if you're always in it, just like anybody else would. It just wears you down. So I just wanted to bring a little notice to that, because I know that I'm not the only person in the world that's the sole caregiver. I cannot be the only person that's going through this. So if you know anybody, even in your own personal life, that's not related to you, that's taking care of someone with Alzheimer's, be extra special to that person. Maybe just do something nice for that person, for the caregiver, maybe even volunteer to watch for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, so that person can maybe go out and watch a movie, or go out for a dinner. Really, it means a lot. It would mean a lot if that could happen. I know somebody that I know put me in touch with this volunteer organization or something like that, which turns out to really not be volunteer. I had to pay $50 to access their database, and only to come to find out, because I live in the middle of nowhere, there's no volunteers, not even within 20 miles of where I live. And since I paid the $50, I reached out to one person that was like 30 miles away, and she refused to do it. I mean, she didn't refuse. She just said, no, thanks. And it was only going to be for like an hour once a week. Again, it's not what people in my position need. But yeah, so if you know anybody, and people who are listening, watching this program, if you know somebody who's going through it, like, do what you can to help the person. Like I say, volunteer a little bit of time, or just like a shoulder to lean on or something, right? And don't give advice. That's the worst thing you can do too, because a caregiver knows 100% what's going on. They don't want to hear anybody else's revolutionary ideas on it. When you're thrust in the middle of it, you know exactly what's going on. And every patient is different, and every patient goes through cycles and changes. Okay. My mother is no longer the way she was 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 2 years ago. Okay. It keeps changing. And there's treatments coming up, and this and that, but for my mom, nothing has worked. They say on average you have a life expectancy of 4 to 6 years after diagnosis, but
Wow.
it can go up to 20 years. Okay. We just found out, or I just found out Friday, that some of the results of her labs came back. Well, all of them came back, and she's got stage 3 kidney disease. Okay. So that's out, but outside of that, she's generally healthy. Her oxygen levels, her blood pressure was fine, 130 over, I think, 82. Her resting heart rate was like 60. So generally she's healthy. So this is going to be a long thing with her. It's more than likely it's going to be a long process. So for people out there, yeah, make sure that you have as much help as you can get for yourself. Okay. And the more help you get, the better of a caregiver you can become. So really, that's all I wanted to say. We can move on now to something probably happy, but
Well, Tony, what were some of the first symptoms that you noticed before the actual diagnosis? Was it just memory loss, or
are you talking now in hindsight, or actually
forgetting things?
Well, personality changes, forgetting things, yes. But then after the diagnosis, like I said, when I had to reflect on other things, like the years before, it was the, I guess you'd say, delusions. Okay. And for people who don't know what that is, it's not like it necessarily even, they just make things up, right? But they sound completely plausible. It's not like, hey, I just had a space rocket shipped to the moon. No, it's nothing like that. It's something that could be, you would believe, 100% believable. And they're very convincing because they believe it. And while this isn't the proper term technically, because they're not doing anything purposely, they gaslight you. Okay. It becomes a gaslight situation. Kind of like what a narcissist, they gaslight people all the time. This is a similar thing. So you never know what to believe anymore. And then you, as the spouse or the loved one or the caregiver or whatever, you start to doubt everything, your own reality. So yeah, with my mom, it was some of that, which I did not know, because like I said, I did not have any idea that she was making things up. I believed her. But it was just probably the memory loss that was the trigger for the initial dementia diagnosis. It's tough, Nico, especially when especially when it's a loved one, and you just don't. It's like a magic trick. You don't know. They're so convincing.
And Penny, to your point, it's hard to know when to pull the trigger to get it diagnosed because, like I said, even at my age, I can tell I'm not remembering things. My word recall is terrible. I used to have my vocabulary has slipped considerably. Like I used to know, or like if names of actors or things in movies, I can tell I can't recall them as quickly, and that's disturbing to me. But like I just actually yesterday, this is going to be a very somber episode, I think, but like I was at a memorial for my cousin yesterday, and my mother and uncle were there, and we came separately, but my mom didn't recognize me initially, and I had the mask on, and it's not like she sees me in a suit very often, but I've never seen her not recognize me before. Now she's, in her 80s, but I can see a serious decline going. Actually, both of them didn't recognize me. So, but now my uncle lives in Florida and probably hasn't seen me in years. But he immediately thought I was somebody and thought I was somebody who lived in Colorado. I don't even know who he confused me for. It was weird seeing them both back to back. Again, they're both in their 80s. I don't know I don't think either of them have been diagnosed or even, tested for that. So that's something, now my mom lives with my sister and brother-in-law, and yeah, and like I said, my sister's got her own health things to be dealing with too. Her ability to do caretaking is going to be difficult. So far they're dealing with it, but yeah, it's a scary thing.
Well, let me just throw in that just because you forget now, doesn't all, don't panic out there, everybody. It doesn't mean you have dementia or Alzheimer's because that's a separate thing. But everybody should, like my memory's poor, but I know why. I've been diagnosed with, with the brain issues, but so it could be other things, right? But yeah, you should get tested, Joe. They do these cognitive tests. It's not an invasive, it's more of like a skill set, okay?
Mhm.
It's a non-invasive test, and then of course if you fail that, or if they're concerned, they maybe do then they may do brain scans or CAT scans or something. But yeah, jump on it, man. You just don't know.
How old was your mom when, so you said like 2000, about when you
No,
started seeing?
she was diagnosed about 10 years ago. Okay. So that would have made her about 70 when she got diagnosed, roughly. Okay. But I think it was going on since the year 2000, I think, which would put her at 60 at that point in time. Yeah, 60. She was born 1940. So yeah, she's 81 now. And they said now in retrospect, like Ronald Reagan, they suspect that he had Alzheimer's while he was president in his second term. Okay. They look back on it now, and you can see these things, right? Oh, yes, these were patterns that were probably, Alzheimer's. So yeah, it can be something that can be very subtle, especially if it's early onset Alzheimer's. You don't know. It could start sometimes in your late 40s or 50s. So sure, you should, get it looked at, and they do have medication now that's designed to slow it down, slow the progress. In my friend's father's case, it's working, and he's 90 years old, and his
Wow.
Alzheimer's has been okay. But my mom was on the same meds, and as a matter of fact, I took her to the doctor this Monday, and he just finally decided just to take her off of it because it doesn't work. It's absolutely not working for her. She's just, but hopefully,
Oh no, I was just going to kind of make some observations on some of the points you made, like the thing of not trusting what's real or not from the caretaker's perspective. Because I had some coworkers who were intentionally deceptive, I'll say this, or they would play games with what they would say. I think they were just kind of covering their tail. But I could kind of see, even if someone's doing it, but I basically remember being in the same thing with them where I never knew, and also was questioning myself, because sometimes they would make it seem like, oh no, I actually said this other thing, or, and they were always just slight variations. So I began to question myself, like it's this, you get in this weird state of like,
that's the gaslighting.
yeah, it's like, I'm pretty sure you said the other thing, but maybe I forgot, like the first time you're trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. And that can put you in a very, stressful situation or unstable where you're like uncertain now, you're questioning yourself. And eventually I had corroboration from people outside saying, no, because it's this, and like I said, and that's in case of someone intentionally doing it, but if they're not even intentionally doing it, it's got to be even harder to pick off, or when you're by yourself and you don't have someone else who's like also tracking what's going on to say, oh, no, this is what really happened. That's got to be. And the other thing is kind of, I think, one thing that's really changed for me. So I used to, when you hear about some of these criminals, like these white collar criminals who get house arrest, I used to always think, wow, man, what a slap on the wrist that was. But then I think like a lot of people, in North America or the Western world now are getting an appreciation for like when you're quarantined at home. It's great maybe for a few weeks, but at a certain point you go stir crazy, you get like cabin fever or whatever. And that's kind of another, I guess it's not completely the perspective, but it's just another, insight into kind of maybe what someone like yourself, you can't go out. I mean, you're permanently quarantined because you have to keep an eye on them because, they could hurt themselves accidentally or whatever. So it's kind of like you're getting all those things layered on top of you. You've got the quarantine, kind of the cabin fever thing, and then just the questioning of yourself and the stress that brings.
Well, the other thing, and this is for people who work in the professional caregivers, you have to watch, or caretakers, whatever, you have to be careful of the false accusations, because especially like in the beginning stages, this person may be completely, you would never know this person has Alzheimer's, okay, or whatever. They can come off like totally awesome. They'll say something that's completely untrue, but like if they were to tell it to a police officer, the police officers would be convinced. And they could even, I mean, you could spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours with a person and maybe never see any other symptoms, right? But then as the disease progresses, then of course it would become more pronounced and you'd be able to see it right away. But yeah, it's a dangerous situation, especially with these CNAs who don't make a lot of money. Okay, they're not making $100,000 a year. They're working for basically minimum wage, and now they may have somebody who'll misplace their money, and accuse the caretaker of taking the money. And it's just like, who wants that stress? Of being accused of stealing. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't happen. We all know that, yes, sadly, there are in-home caretakers, caregivers, in-home workers, whatever the label they go by, that do things like that. They've been caught doing it. But you don't hear about the times that they get falsely accused. And that's dangerous. That's a stress. You just don't want it. There was many times, like before she was bad, like when she could still drive and all of that stuff, before she was super bad, so I didn't have to be here. I'd be out doing whatever, and because I thought I could leave her a little bit, and then I'd come home. She'd say stuff like, "Such and such came over to the house, was looking for you." I'm like, "Oh, really? Oh, yeah." So then I would call that person up, and they're like, "I wasn't at your house. I don't even know where you live." That kind of stuff. So then, and a couple of times, well, more than a couple of times, I did not know in the beginning. I'm like, what? Like you, Joe. I mean, it's like, what? Who's lying to me here? What's happening here? So yeah, it's difficult. And then, they wander, they take things, they misplace things, they're gone forever, and that's another frustrating thing, and it's expensive. She's in the habit of losing remote controls and shit. So keys, you name it, stuff, it's gone. And throwing out food, brand new food, stuff like that. It gets to the point where what do? You can't lock everything up. You just can't. And my memory's not great, so if I'm hiding things from her, I got to remember where the shit's at, and I don't. So it's a difficult situation. It really is. So like this morning, 11:30 at night, she's opening the door to my room. Now I've locked that door, but she knows how to unlock it. And then at 12:30, sneaking in and all this. Talk about PTSD. you know, this is what'll cause it, because you don't know. You know, it could be a burglar. You don't know. So you get up right away, you're, you know, boom, ready to go. It's tough. It's unbelievable, guys. I'd never imagined anything like this in my life. Never. I wouldn't wish this on anybody. I would not wish either thing. See, I wouldn't wish for somebody to be in my position or my mom's position. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's bad. It's terrible.
Does she at least sleep through the night
What's that?
most nights, or is it and stuff at night?
Well, she's now, okay, they have this thing called sundowners, okay, which is like a subset. So at night, they tend to get worse. You can look this up. It's kind of fascinating. Well, she doesn't. Sometimes she sleeps at night or through the night, sometimes not, like this morning or last night, however you want to look at it. No, she was up constantly. And, you know, it just rattles me, because now I'm hyper, because I don't have very good hearing, as you guys know. So, but any noise I hear, I'm immediately thinking it's something related to her. So living out here in the rural with the animals and shit that are all over the place, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it just makes it so like your nerves are like this. And you know, and then it puts me in such a terrible position where, you know, like I can't just go out and get a job. I can't leave her here for 10 hours a day. I can't do it. So what, you know, I just don't know. I just don't know how I'm going to get through all this either. You know, it's tough. But, and once again, this environment here, this rural community that I live in, most of the people out here have families. Okay, it's all families. I'm the exception. You know, there is no family here. So this is, of all the places you could put me in, and my mom, this is the worst place to possibly be. You know, we need to be back in a big city where there's support groups or just, you know, neighbors that'll help out or things. But we can't do it. We just financially can't leave. You know, there's so much to it. It's a bad mistake that I had, you know, moving out here. But anyway, yeah, to get back to the original question, yeah, her doctor probably did the memory. They did that initial memory cognitive test. And it was poor. My mom was a CNA, my mom was she was a live-in. She used to live in with patients, you know, for like weeks at a time, 6 weeks, 7 weeks at a time. Then she'd come stay with me for a weekend or whatever. When she'd have her day off, there was no reason for her to have an apartment. And then she got fired finally after, over 30 years. Well, one patient she had died, but then the other patients, she finally got fired because they, I guess, were noticing that she was forgetful. You know, you can't do that. And so she went and got diagnosed, and or went to see the doctor to find out what's going on. That's when they initially diagnosed her. That's back when I was living in a city. And then shortly thereafter, you know, the 3-flat that I was living in, that I was renting, the landlord didn't pay the rent, his mortgage. I mean, after like 2 years, they foreclosed. We were forced to move. It was in the middle of the winter. We just couldn't find a place. You know, I had a dog, you know, this was rough. I just had a very limited time to get the hell out, you know, and, you know, so finally this place way out, which was fine, because my mom was like, oh, I would always, you know, I would love to be in a house, da, da, da. Well, it just turned out to be a nightmare. So for me, because now all the responsibility is on me. I'm in the middle of nowhere, no help, and yeah, not good. So, and I could work back then, at least I could have an income. Now it's just, you know, it's whatever I can sell on the internet. You know, I can't teach, I can't do seminars, I can't do side jobs, I can't do anything. I'm stuck here.
Well, you could do the Tri-C program, right?
Yeah, right. If people would sign up, that's great. That's why we promote that. You know, that's why we're really pushing for the Tri-C, because that I can do from anywhere. You know, I don't even have to be even in this house. I could do that anywhere. But yeah, I wish more people, I wish people would join. If they would join, that would not only help them for learning, but it would help me as well, because it would take a lot of the pressure off of me financially, and it would allow me to get a little nest egg so that I can, if I could find a place to move, I could have the security deposits and all of that jazz. But yeah, it's and saying that they bought my downloads, but people tend to pirate stuff. That sucks. Even the membership program, if they could sign up $10 a month, if I had 200 people signing up for that, that would be great. That'd be $2,000 a month, steady income. But it's just not taking off. But anyway, I took her to get a haircut Wednesday. Oh well, actually, yeah, Thursday, and the haircut place is like 15 minutes away. And in that 15 minutes, it was 5 times. Well, first of all, we drove and we got about halfway there. She asked me where we're going because she didn't remember. I said the haircut. So in the course of 7 minutes, she asked me 4 more times, where are we going? So now her memory retention is, I'll say about 2 minutes. Sometimes a little less. Sometimes it's only about a minute. And that's another, when you got to keep repeating yourself and repeating yourself and repeating yourself, it gets annoying. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's such a terrifying prospect to have your mental faculties degrade like that. Because that's who your person is and how you experience life. So yeah, my heart just goes out to her and to you. Obviously, like you said, you're shining perspective on the fact that it's not just her. There's other people being affected by this too. The people have to take care of that. And I think, I appreciate you sharing this with everybody, because I think raising awareness, because if you're not going through it, maybe you don't think of all the different, situations that people can be in, like yours. You're an only child, you're an only child of an only child, and those families exist out there. And, so I think a lot of people make assumptions of people's ability to rely on others, and have community. And I think it's also raising awareness just how important community is, whether it's family or friends. And, it's not just there for, just kind of entertainment or comfort, but literal support, in situations like these.
Well, when you were able to go to Cleveland, and Scott watched her for me, and Scott, is my closest friend out here and everything. And he's like, I can't do it ever again. You can't. Don't do this to me. I can't do it. He's like, I can't. He says, but I'm glad I did, because now I get a better appreciation of what I have to go through. But he's like, he says, I can't do it. But it was good for Scott, because his father's the one who has Alzheimer's. His father's 90, but he's much better than my mom. So this is kind of like a wake-up call for Scott to see what might be in store if his dad's mental faculties, take a turn for the worse. So it was, but yeah, he's like, I can't handle this. But see, Scott has a stepmother, so he's got that help, and she's got kids and all of that. So my thing is, my parents got divorced when I was about a year or two old, right? I wasn't raised by my mom. I was raised by my grandparents. So this is, again, another unique facet to what's happening in this dynamic. So since I don't, I went years and years, I've seen my dad, well, my dad passed away, but I've seen my dad probably less than 10 times in my whole life, okay? I never saw him until I was 17, and then it was crazy, so I just don't have the family. And even if I did, they're all East Coast people, right? Well, some of them, I guess, are maybe out west. I don't know. I haven't met many of them. I only met the cousins at my dad's funeral and whatnot, but they're not, it's, well, you met somebody once or twice in your life, that doesn't count. So yeah, but I'm saying there has to be other people out there that are in my situation. And even if I can reach out to them, even if your loved one, the person you may be responsible for, doesn't show any signs of this or whatever, just still always be in a position where you can get help. Maybe it'll be another health crisis that you'll have to step in and take care of that may be overwhelming for you. You've got to get yourself some help. I talked to somebody about, I think I mentioned this to you, Joe, about 3-4 months ago, a professional, and she said to me on the phone, she says, once this is all over and done with, she said, it's going to take you minimum 1 or 2 years to just get yourself right again. From a psychological standpoint, yes, exactly. It's going to take time to, just decompress and, get a life again. Because it's been many, many years that I've been dealing with this. Like I said, at least 10 straight years of just craziness. It's hard. So I kind of got mad at somebody in the summer or spring from out here, and she made a comment like, well, I know what you're going through. I took care of my mother for 6 months. That was the wrong thing to say to me. I said, 6 months, my goodness, you don't even have a clue. Try doing it for 10 years. Try doing it 24/7. You had a husband, you had children, you had brothers. Matter of fact, I know her brother. You had one of her brothers. I don't want to hear this. 6 months. You know what I'm going through. You don't. So that's another thing. You try not to judge people unless you walked in their shoes. Like I said, I've known about Alzheimer's forever, but I didn't know about Alzheimer's. See what I'm saying? I thought I knew. I didn't know.
Well, I think that like I said, you sharing this is kind of raising awareness just how desperate some circumstances can be. A lot of people make assumptions, and I think, unfortunately, our society is, in such a place where we can't, there are people falling through the cracks, basically. It's unfortunate that I think our society is big enough and rich enough where it should be able to, in like situations like your mom, be able to take care of her full time. It shouldn't be all on you. I think we as a country and as a community should be able to, give that support, but it's not happening. And I think people need to think about that too. That, I think there's a lot out there that people feel it's like, well, it's, you got to take care of yourself and, it's on you. And no, I think sometimes we as a whole have to get together and take care of those who are in situations like yours. So I think making people aware that there are situations where families can't, are very stretched to their limits and can't, even if the heart's in the right place for whatever reason, they need support from the outside, whether that's through insurance or through, government programs and whatnot. And I'm not trying to be too political, but I'm just trying to say that people need to think that there's, situations out there that they may not have thought of, and people falling through the cracks, that our system is very, unfortunately, there's clearly gaps. I mean, I think you talked about being out in the rural area, and I've heard just in general, not even related to Alzheimer's, how they talk about it being kind of like healthcare deserts, where people can't get the care they need, or people are suffering from things. They're just too far away from getting proper care, and that's and there's like I think a dearth of doctors, people who are not going to be out there. Obviously, a lot of the talented, really highly trained people are going to be maybe in more densely populated areas, but we've got to think about those people who are out, outside and out the outskirts, and how do we take care of them?
Well, I know a guy, not well, but I know a guy out here who's older. His son's actually a pretty successful actor out in Hollywood. But anyhow, he had his wife in a nursing home that apparently this guy that I know, he must be well off, because he had his wife in a nursing home, but it only ended up being a matter of a few months, maybe like 9 or 10 months. I don't know. But it was over $7,000 a month that he had to pay. Had to pay. And then he finally got her transferred into one that was like $4,800 a month, but then she passed away. She wasn't even there, I think, a month. But so he kind of looked at, he kind of had like an attitude, it's like, well, you can't afford $4,800 a month. No, I mean, this isn't, and this isn't my mother. I mean, this isn't my wife. This is my mother. Yeah, but so you're talking 7,000, almost 5,000 a month out of your own pocket. I don't make that. I don't even make that in a year anymore. So what the hell? So that's the healthcare is just, it's just, ridiculous. It's just so expensive. Yeah, and I remember, like I told you, I'm going to have that meeting on the 21st. But when when the adult daycare was shut down and we had, you couldn't go anywhere, they tried to bring at least some caregivers to the house. And these caretakers, if they showed up, which they mostly didn't, they couldn't find work. They couldn't find the people that wanted to do this job. My mom was only, it was only 26 hours a week. That was all that, the max that, that they would do, 26 hours a week. And that was Monday through Friday only. And, that doesn't really give me, and again, like I said, I don't know if these people are going to show up. Many times they didn't. Sometimes they did, and they left early because they were so undependable, right? There was one lady near the end that was pretty dependable, but the scheduling, just her hours, she couldn't give the right hours. It was more or less, we had to fit our life into their schedule as opposed to the other way around. And it ended up that I was still taking my mom to some of the doctor's appointments, okay, as opposed to the caretaker. But be that as it may, even at 26 hours, that doesn't give me a lot of time, during the week to do something, like a 40-hour-a-week job is not a 40 hours a week. It's more, that you got to take in drive time there and back and add your lunch and all that. You could probably in some instances add another 10 hours to that. Okay. So you're gone 50 hours a week. Well, so it was just a disaster, and like I said, it's weird to have people that you don't know in your house, caregivers, caretakers. You got to get to know them. You got to trust them. You got to make sure, that nothing is missing intentionally on their end, and it's not in my case, it's not my mom that misplaced something. It could be them. It's very stressful, and they were like opinionated about certain things. They didn't want to wear a mask. They didn't want to be vaccinated. They just, well, later on when vaccines came out. But I mean, it was just like, man, I don't want my mom getting sick here. Okay. So yeah, there's just it's like an onion. I think I said this before. There's layers to this. Okay, you peel off one layer, there's another layer. It gets deeper and deeper and deeper. But the bottom line is, man, I just, when Kenny told me over $7,000 a month he was paying for a nursing home, man, I can't fathom it.
Is she still eligible for those 26 hours of caretaking or no?
Apparently, I'm going to know on the 21st, but apparently they're not responding to any of my calls anymore. I quit calling. Okay. They're not even calling me back. I would say no, because she's so bad now. They know from before, during the COVID, how they couldn't get care. It was so hard, Nico, to get caretakers to come here. Okay. It was unbelievable. Day after day, week after week, nobody's showing up. Okay. So like I told Joe before you logged in, this is a cover your ass situation, I think. Yeah, I just don't know what's going to happen. So it's going to be status quo for me. It's going to be just like it is until I can, get a solid enough income to move, and of course I'd have to take her with me, but if I could get back into the city or thereabouts, Niles, Norwich, whatever, I might be able to get Cook County, maybe able to help her, but again, I'd have to look into that. I'd have to find out. I don't know. I don't know how any of that works. And then I'd have to try to find a place that we could afford to live in, Nobody's going to rent to me when I'm not showing an income, right? So even though you get the whole point. I don't want to go into this big spiel about my personal business here, but you know how it can get. It's tough. So I don't know what the answer is, but they are supposedly coming out here on the 21st at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's see if they even show up. I don't even expect them to come, tell you the truth.
Well, again, I think I appreciate you sharing all this. I know it's obviously very personal for you, and it's very tough. But I think raising awareness as to what people can be going through and what the needs are out there. Maybe people haven't thought of this. And hopefully this will give them at least some perspective. And
I think the COVID should make people more aware, because there was a lot of people that were like lost their jobs or just things changed, right? And for those that were like, there's this big thing is nobody wants to work, they're living on unemployment. Well, they weren't making $100,000 on unemployment. Okay. So if they were relying on unemployment, you could see quickly that ain't a lot, that's not a lot of money. And maybe their savings got depleted, like mine's gone. Okay. Everything. So they must know that they're one crisis away from a total collapse. Then what do you do? What next? What happens next? So homelessness probably, but I just don't know the answer, guys. I don't know, for not just myself, but for anybody else that's in this predicament. And it's a major predicament and again, it doesn't have to be Alzheimer's. It could be some other disease or illness that bankrupts a family. I mean, a lot of families have lost everything because of, medical expenses or whatnot. So far, knock wood, pretty much everything that she's had to get done medically. I think she's got one bill I have to look at. But her insurance has covered that, like her pharmacy and stuff is covered. But she needs a place to, she needs help. It's just not happening. But anyway, that's that story. We still have a little bit of time left, so let's kind of switch gears here a little bit, I think, as I'm kind of exhausted about this. The White Sox, it's do or die for them tonight. If they lose tonight, they're out. They're out of the playoffs. And I was actually pulling for them since they beat my Cleveland Indians. Indians didn't make the playoffs. I was pulling for the White Sox, so we'll see what happens against Houston tonight. I'm not confident that, I kind of believe that the White Sox will win tonight, but it's a best 3 out of 5. They're down 2-0. My Browns are looking good. They're 3-1. They play at 3 o'clock today, so I'll be here upstairs watching the game. And the Bears are 2-2, and Joe still has the best hair that probably ever. I did a virtual tour online of famous Greek statues of gods, and none of them had hair as good as you, Joe. Not one.
Well, theirs doesn't move as well.
Huh?
But theirs definitely doesn't have the movement that mine has, for sure.
No. You're making a joke. I'm being serious here. Okay. Today's supposed to be a serious podcast. Not Apollo, not Atlas. Medusa, that was close, but that's a whole nother story.
Did you ever see the movie Clash of the Titans with Medusa?
Yeah, years ago, yeah.
That was cool. I really loved that one. So yeah, I could go for that. Maybe that'll be Halloween. That'll be my Halloween. I still haven't picked out my costume, so just a little hair gel, a few snakes, I'll be set.
I got my haircut with her the other day, so the next time I go, I'll go by, I'll try to, if I can get somebody just,
And your costume is looking fantastic too, boy. Woo.
It's very scary.
Yeah, just definitely nice little preview for everybody to get in the holiday mood.
Yeah, get in that. Yeah, that reminds me, I'm going to have to get some chocolate or some candy, I should say, for the kids. Well, I don't even know if they're going to come around, but I'll have some candy if I don't eat it all first.
That's the trick, is you got to time it right. It's just like with pumpkin carving. If you do too early, the squirrels just eat it, and then that you're left with that. So I'm trying to determine if I'm actually going to do a pumpkin carving, because I'm a 50-year-old man, so why should I be doing that? But also my kids are out of the house too, so I'm running out of excuses for doing this kind of stuff. But I need some kind of indication to the outside world that we will be giving candy here.
Say it's for the kids, Joe.
That's what I've been saying my whole life, honestly. They've all just been a cover story for me, for the most part, for letting me buy my comic books and action figures and shit, So, but yeah, now that's gone. I've blown that. So now I just have to, come clean and say I'm doing it for myself, I suppose. But let's see what else is going on. Hey, I took my first archery lesson. There's a place, in Forest Park, actually. Our friend Rick Solo, who did a great podcast with us, tipped me off. He shoots, one of his hobbies is archery. And so I was kind of, side talking with him, and he said, yeah, check out this shop. And I'm going to read, it's called the Archery Custom Shop in Forest Park. I believe it's the oldest archery shop in the Chicago area. It's been there since 1948. So like I said, this is my first exposure to it. We had an instructor, because I went with Sasha, actually. She did it too. But it was a lot of fun. I dig it. And I guess apparently when you get up at a certain level, they almost kind of do it like a tournament of darts. They have the shop in front where you can buy all the archery, all the bows and arrows and things like that. And then towards the back, they have a range where they do the lessons, but apparently they have a second floor and upstairs where they have range. I didn't see the upstairs range, but people come in and shoot there, but yeah, apparently they have competitions and things like that. So it seems like a lot of fun. So who knows, that might be a new thing.
Forest Park's a pretty cool town. I didn't live too far from there, right off of Harlem. I was on Elmwood Park, Chicago border, Harlem and Grand before I moved out here. Forest Park was right down the street on Harlem. There was one point in time, I thought they said that they had more bars per square mile than any place in America, or at least in Illinois. Yeah, but then I also heard that about Highwood, Illinois too. I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah, anyhow, Forest Park, see, now that's south. Now that's getting towards Nico's old stomping grounds, his old neighborhood. So yeah, I'm a north side guy. So if I were to move back, I'd want to be somewhere on the north side. But just because, again, I don't want to be isolated. I have a few, I'll call them friends, just not like, older guys, people that I know that I could go and hang out with just to blow off steam. So for sure, I want to live near them. I don't need to go from one isolated situation where I'm at now to another one. I just don't want to do that. I don't want to have to start making a bunch of new friends again. And, I don't want that. So at least on the north side, I know everything. I know where places are. I know people that I can call or something happens in my car. I got an idea where I can, I know who I can get to fix it, shit like that. See, so I just want stressless, as stressless as possible, but for real, nothing. She's got to go back to the doctor on November 6th for her retest her thyroid, where doctors switching medicines around, and then January 4th. So this is just a regular doctor. I don't know what the point is, but yeah, I want to. If I do get out, I want to go back someplace kind of nice.
Yeah, right. Actually, so that was my first time really being in the downtown. I think it was the downtown of Forest Park, but it's very quaint, like the downtown little stretch there. A lot of older storefronts and places. So that's another draw to go there. Is that, and no pun intended. But I'll, might end up doing lessons and then hanging out there in the evening. It might be a good social thing.
They got a lot of Irish bars over there, and they got a nice Italian restaurant there. If it's still there, 2 floors. Well, I used to be a member of the American Legion in Berwyn over there, so which is basically the other side of Harlem. And but yeah, I did hang out now and then in Forest Park, not often, okay, because that's not my bag. But yeah, it's really nice.
With all those bars, maybe I should drink before I go shooting. That might.
Yeah, you might do better. You got Oak Park down the street too. Oak Park's really nice. You'd fit in out there. They have some culture. The see, talk about names. The famous architect, his house is there. His
Oh,
studio,
yeah,
right.
Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah, his studio is there. Rosati's Pizza's there. They got that Penny Noodles. That's really good. A great ice cream shop. I used to go to this bar part in the basement of this fancy hotel because they played jazz on Wednesdays. I used to go to this other place, this other hotel bar, which was like from the 1930s because they had music there. They quit. They changed all that. That's before I moved. They changed all that. So I quit going to these joints because that was like one of my only, right down the street from my house. I could listen to live jazz. How great was that for me, you know? I got to meet the actor John Mahoney, if you guys remember him. He played, what the hell's his name? The doctor, the comedy. I can't remember. The guy that played Fraser. He played Fraser's dad.
Okay,
and he
sure.
was in the movie Tin Men, which I liked, because he lived in Oak Park at the time. You know, he passed away now, but yeah, it was kind of like my old neighborhood, man, for years. Wasn't far from where I
Chicago has
lived.
a lot of great burbs, actually. A lot of, and a lot of city people are not, they stayed into the city, but there's a lot of suburbs with a lot of character.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, oh yeah, sure. But even sections of Chicago, even neighborhoods. Now I know Chicago's making the news with this crime wave, carjacking, and everything. It's all true. You know, there's no whitewashing it. It's happening. But the bigger picture is there's still, enclaves that are so nice, peaceful. But for me, I can tell both of you guys, well, everybody that's listening, because of how I've been so isolated out here from anything, even a decent tasting hamburger. I'll never put myself in this position again. It's just not worth it. Life is not worth it when everything is a damn struggle, and you can't even get anything that's halfway decent. So I want to be put wherever I live. I want to be around good restaurants, or like not even like fancy. I'm just saying like where I can get a decent, gyros or a friggin', pasta meal or some shit. It's frustrating. It really is to be out here. You guys know, you've been to my house, there's nothing out here. It's fast food heaven, and shit. And I miss neighborhoods. I miss the diversity of talking to somebody with an Irish accent or a Polish accent or a German or, whatever, or seeing an Italian guy on the street and saying something to him in Italian, when I'm having my morning espresso. I miss all that, man. I never thought, oh man, how much I miss all that.
Miko, you're the opposite, right? You're getting further and further away.
Yeah, I try to stay away from people, social distance as much as I can.
You were
But
socially distancing before it was cool.
Yeah, no, I've been training for this my whole life. But I could identify with Tony, man. You go out in the rural areas, it's like,
oh, he's leaving us hanging.
the only thing you could eat is pride. It's like there's nothing. Yeah, there's no culture. Definitely, it's lacking. So yeah, I definitely enjoy that part of the city.
Yeah, me too. I mean, the culture, just driving through the different neighborhoods and seeing how these are all brick houses, these are frame houses, and these are, the architecture of the buildings and so on. I miss all that. I really do. And especially, of course, it's always nice on a bright sunny day. Okay, nothing looks good when you got 6 inches of snow on the ground, but the people of Chicago were so much like the people of Cleveland, okay, where you could find kinship. You really could. You may never become lifelong friends. You may not even know anybody's last name, but there's just something, because the one thing about when you're that diverse, I think in the rural section, at least I'll speak for out here where I'm at, people are into conversion. All right. They want to convert you into their way of thinking, their way of believing, this and that. Because everybody's the same. Everybody's the same. When you go to Chicago or any large city, Cleveland, don't matter, everybody's different. Everybody comes from a different background, different thing. So nobody's really out to convert you into anything, because they know it's not going to happen. They're either going to like your culture or like what you have to offer about it, and then accept you, or they're going to just stay away from you. And I think that's the biggest thing. The beauty of the diversity, the beauty of I can talk to somebody like I told my friend Scott, it's like football, or baseball, anything. Everybody knows that I'm a Cleveland sports fan. When it comes to sports, nobody is trying to convert me to being a Bears fan or a Cub fan. Nobody thinks in those terms. But it seems out here where I live, everybody wants you to start thinking and acting like they do, and that's just not going to be me. I'm not going to do it. So get me back to Chicago or close to it, so I can just be a chameleon, blend in with everybody.
Once they know you're a Browns fan, they kind of realize it's a lost case. So
Hey, we kicked your ass a couple weeks ago. Bad. 9 sacks. Don't forget that, pal. Don't forget it.
you have your 1 year. We'll see.
We'll see. Hey, man, we'll see what happens. Well, see, both games are on today at 3. I'm not sure I can get the Browns game, so I'll probably be watching the Bears, and I'll just have the laptop on and just get updates on the Browns. Yeah, but I'm hoping for the best with Cleveland. But being a Cleveland sports fan, I don't get too excited because it's heartbreak after heartbreak. I've only lived to see one championship, and that was a few years ago when the Cavaliers won. So that was great. I think I told you guys I went back to Cleveland for the parade and all that. I soaked it up, man. I lived it up. It was nice. It was nice to be in that. So
No,
yeah,
it'd definitely be cool for Cleveland for them to get that. I'll give them that.
well, you saw it. You were there. Cleveland's a coming back kind of. There's some nice areas in Cleveland that they were not. They weren't even like areas when I lived there. Tremont and all that. That's really nice. But it seems the pandemic, the COVID, the real estate, it's insanity now. It's nuts. The prices are just for rents or to purchase. This is ridiculous. Okay. I don't understand that. So even to try to live back in Cleveland would not be feasible. I'm not going to do it. I mean, I don't want to leave you guys. I want to kind of I told you, I don't want to start all over again. I want to get a little closer to the city, or in the city particularly. And, rekindle some friendships, not rekindle like we broke up, but just, reestablish myself with people that haven't seen me as often as they should have in the last almost 8 years that I've lived here. That's priority.
Yeah, absolutely. Reconnecting is a good thing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like I said, isolation for me, there's no one to even talk to in person out here. My mom, you can't hold a conversation with her. So, it's really tough. I mean, these are cool. This thing here, this podcast or Zoom, whatever, but it's not the same as just being with somebody in the same room, where you could, say, oh, come here, let's go in the other room. I want to show you something, or whatever. Let's sit outside, or whatever, But yeah, I do miss Chicago. I just don't know what's going to happen here. Probably more of the same.
Well, definitely praying for you and your mom, Tony. And I'm sure a lot of people out there who are listening are as well. So, and again, yeah, thank you for sharing all that. I think it's very important to raise awareness. If you're going to go through this, at least that's some positive you can bring to this, is maybe forewarning to other people that they can start to prepare and maybe nip some things in the bud and be ready for it. It's nothing anybody wants, obviously, but we've got to be ready for the potential.
Well, I've talked about that in regards to street fighting, how when you're getting into a street fight, you can't be fighting yourself as well as your opponents. You have to be mentally prepared to die. You have to have your affairs in order, like, life insurance, whatever it is, if you have a family, so on and so forth. I spent all my life focusing on that, and then this crops up. This is an unexpected thing. So I find myself, I'll use the term fighting myself, as opposed to fighting my mom's Alzheimer's, because it's so much, it's so overwhelming. Imagine being in a street fight every waking moment of your day, every single day. Not even a soldier can do that. Nobody's put through that. Okay. You flame out, you burn out. So I'm battling my own self to try to, keep my sanity, lower my stress, figuring ways to blow off steam. It's tough, man. This is probably when I had to learn to walk again, that was a big challenge in my life. But I think this is a bigger challenge. Okay. Because I don't have help. I don't have income. I don't have help. I am really, 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 really isolated on my own. So this is it. This is like being in the wilderness, man. This is like when you went on your wilderness trip, a couple months ago. This is it, man. I'm on my own and I got to figure my way out without a compass, without survival gear. That's pretty much how I'm looking at things. So I'm going to do the best I can, man. I'm hanging in there. That's all I can say. But on that note, it's getting late now. I guess we should probably wrap things up. I want to thank you. I'm glad to see you again, Nico.
Good to see you guys.
If I can see you in person, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens down the coming months. But Joe, you're always the man. Shout out again to Javier Palomo, another world championship. And if you don't have enough reasons to be proud of Javier, he just gave you one more. How do you like me now? So this is a beautiful thing, so that's great. And yep. So everybody, thanks for checking in, and we will see you guys next weekend.
All right, later, guys.